Witch, the Priestess, and the Cauldron. A podcast featuring Elvira Love and Deborah Voith, two out-of-the-broom-closet professional witches with over 70 years combined experience of making magic. This is a show on the LMC Radio Network. During each episode, Elvira and Deb will help you create rituals, cast spells, make potions, and much more besides. They'll spend time speaking about different goddesses from all over the world, paying attention to the ancient reverence of long-ago cultures and infusing it with a modern perspective. Elvira, Deb, take it away.
Hello, and welcome to tonight's show. This is Deborah Voith, and I am here with co-host Elvira Love and our magical announcer, Nagashiva Ironwood. So, in keeping with this month's theme of inner transformation, tonight we will be talking about Reiki and other forms of energy healing. But first, we're going to catch up with each other and just kind of talk about what kind of week we've had. So, yeah, I can start out here. I don't know, it's been building all this week. This has been a very chaotic week, and especially the last couple of days. I mean, it hasn't been anything like horrible or terrible going on in my life. I'm very grateful. I have a lot of good things going on, actually, but it was just things like having to take my dog to the vet this morning. She's a big beast, and she does not like to go to the vet. And so, you know, we get a workout trying to hold her still and get them to do, you know, that they need to do with my dog, whose name is Loki. And she is very much a Loki. But that went well, but it was enough, you know, to kind of throw me off a little this morning. And then this week I've had a lot of clients, but I've also had a lot of friends and family just calling with either like an urgent situation or something going on, or they're having a bad day, they need someone to talk to. And so, you know, I was doing, you know, a fair amount of readings, some client work, and a lot of, like, healing, spiritual cleansing, and also forgiveness and prosperity work. And I'm starting to do readings on Friday afternoon, again on Hoodoo Psychic. So, yeah. And yesterday was Valentine's Day. And I really didn't do anything very exciting for Valentine's Day just because I was kind of tired. But I did get some flowers from my honey, which is very sweet, and some chocolate-covered strawberries, which I liked even more. So how was your week, Elvira?
Well, it fits right in with what you've been saying. It's been chaotic. It's, you know, had a lot of emotionally charged clients that, you know, were, you know, like, I have now it's imperative. Life is, you know, I'm losing my, you know, grip on life. I need to talk with you, which, you know, I understand. And, you know, of course, that's part of the job. And then it was the same kind of thing was going on, you know, externally, different things happening. And, you know, personally, it's been a challenge because of some of my neighbors. One neighbor got, well, her whole family kind of went through a family, the RSV, and luckily it was a mild case, not a heavy-duty case. So there was that. So, you know, different things had to get changed around because the particular neighbor, she was going to help me take my second car in and pick me up so I could drop it off and have it, checked over so that I can know it's okay or something may need to be done so that I can drive it during the spring and the summer. And, that was kind of like, oh, guess that ain't going to happen. Valentine's Day, was more of a family thing for me since I don't have a significant other. So I kind of did go out and get cards, and I got flowers for my daughter and granddaughter and all of that. And by the time I got home, I was going to take them over to their house and put them on the table and leave all the cards around. And I was just like, there's no way I'm going to do this and still make the call that I had to make to someone that we had planned on and all of the rest. So I called her and she came by and they were just as happy. They got, they were all, my granddaughter is like, oh, she's 8. I got flowers, and that kind of a thing. So that was a nice, sort of capping for, the whole kind of weird day. And, quite honestly, I, kind of had my own off-center moment this morning when one of my smoke detectors decided it didn't like the fact that I didn't turn on a vent fan in one of the bathrooms, and so it kind of went off because of the steam, and that was a whole, thing. The dogs didn't like it, and it was kind of it was weird, and I was laughing after the fact because, of course, then that made me go through all of the smoke detectors and change all the batteries, and write down the dates on the, batteries so I know when I change them, that kind of stuff. So maintenance came up. But, it's kind of a week where I think a lot of things have happened externally in the world. Of course, Sunday was the Super Bowl, and I'm a 49ers fan, so it was down to that moment where we lost it with the 3 points in overtime, but it was okay. I mean, it was twice in the history of Super Bowl they've gone in overtime, so that kind of puts it at a high mark, and, that was only 3 points. It wasn't like they were crushed, but so it was interesting, and I'm not really a football fan, but I kind of have that in honor of my deceased husband who was. So I honored that by, being a 49er fan and wearing the colors.
Yeah.
But that was about it, I mean, the whole process of the week coming to this point, making sure that I was up on our topic. I mean, I was even kind of looking at the fact that I have, I use it all the time. I use Reiki all the time, but I don't necessarily have the structure that you learned when you got your degrees and your mastership, certification and all of this. And I was laughing about it going, I need to refresh myself on some of the, the more structured time of it. So, but I'm glad we're going to talk about it because I'm sure there'll be wonderful things that come up, and I'll be writing notes about them here as I always do. So, but that's been my week, and I'm turning it back to you to start our discussion.
Yeah. Well, so I guess just starting out, I'd like to, especially for our show here, because we are the Witch, the Priestess, the Pauldron, I just want to point out that there's 2 kind of primary aspects of Reiki and energy healing in general, and one is that it is has to do with the physical or the medical, the healing aspect, and the other one is the mystical or magical aspect, which makes the whole body of energy healing just really very interesting because it really is about working with energy. But first I want to kind of go over just, basic definition and background of what Reiki is. And I'm not going to so much go into the whole story of Yusui being on the mountaintop and receiving the symbols and all that stuff, because that we don't really know if that's what happened. And there's, I mean, a lot of practitioners have, said that the truth of Reiki, was Jesus, who went to India. And some say before his crucifixion, some say it was after his resurrection. And then in India, he hid the secret to his healing method. And, he had received it from the Egyptian priesthood, who initiated him as a child. And, it just goes on and on, the lore or the backstory. Then there's the Egyptians learned the Reiki from the sinking before the continent of Atlantis sunk, and back and back and back. And so it's like, yeah, those are all nice stories, and they could, they could be true, but we don't really know. So that's why I'm not focusing so much like on the story of it, but more like what we know about it today. So Reiki is basically, it's a system of energy, and the term Reiki originates from two Japanese words, Rei and Ki. Common definition of Rei is universal, and the most common definition of Ki is life energy. So the term Reiki translated means universal life energy or universal life force. And, there have been other interpretations of Rei, which include, spiritual or God conscious, higher self, like that. And really they're all correct. So for me, my story is when I first heard of Reiki, I approached it initially from the perspective as an RN. And so I was kind of interested in it as an adjunct to my nursing practice. And for, taking any training or attunements or really knowing a whole lot about it, I had heard friends at my local metaphysical shop talking about it. And, at the time I heard the whole, universal life force, which sounded fairly vague and kind of woo-woo. And since I'm very fond of woo, I started to search for it. And my instructor was the fabulous Arlene Rowden from Madison. And she took me over a couple of years from beginner to Reiki Master Teacher. And that was like in the early aughts. And I ended up doing my final attunement and the whole Master Teacher training thingy in 2007. I actually had to look that up because I was like, when did I do that? So there, later on, I'm going to mention like some of the different systems of energy healing. But just to be concise, I was attuned, because she was attuned to two different systems, then I ended up being attuned to two different systems. So, the basic Yusui Reiki, the West here, and Saramai. And so I think different, well, I just want to say there's a lot of different definitions for the whole energy, using healing energy, but they're all basically talking about the same life force when they say Reiki. And and this life force, it's all around us and is in all things, including animals, plants, and people. But the thing I think that's important to know is that it is all around us, but it's not a personal energy. And by that I mean it's not, when I am giving somebody Reiki, I'm not channeling my own energy into them. And you can probably see how this would, not be so good for the healer after a while, because they would be draining all their own personal energy. And so what you're doing within that healing system is that you're channeling the universal energy through you, which is also kind of neat because it helps you. It makes you vibrate at a higher rate. It helps you to balance, and it just you benefit from it every time you also give energy. And so there's the Reiki system, the Usui system, I think is probably one of the more traditional ones, and it uses specific symbols and hand positions and specific philosophy and techniques and stuff like that. And there's kind of like some benefits and safeguards that are built into that system. Although, there's a lot of, as I'll come to tell, a lot of variations, a lot of additions to it. I think that it's a really good thing to do. I know that there's some people out there that just might naturally, intuitively be, channeling, healing energy. And what I've noticed is that some people can be very good at it and just naturally do it, although they don't have the benefit of some of the safeguards and stuff that are built into the system. And then there are some people that have, they're uncertain of how to best work with that flow of energy, and sometimes might have a hard time, or they might even start taking on the symptoms of their clients. But the thing that's really neat about universal energy is that it's a very intelligent energy, and it has its own consciousness. And when you channel it, when you know how to channel it, it goes with it. So I know that's a very basic overview. I was just wondering what some of your thoughts might be about Reiki and energy healing in general, Elvira.
Well, it's interesting because you use, universal life force. And when I came to Reiki and chose to follow it was having been raised and at some point choosing to even train in Reiki and therapy. And Wilhelm Reich, of course, talked about orgone energy, which again is life force. And then it became universal life force energy. And so it hit certain chords for me to want to know what this was and how to go about, utilizing it. It had a lot of balance. So for me, it was like, I found out that, it's, you can do self-healing with it. You can, work as a technique on how to, balance and channel the energies into helping others. And it's funny because you were talking about it isn't you and your energy as the healer. It is this conduit. And one of the things that I did find fascinating, and again, this was, if you drew a diagram and you looked at this and you pushed buttons on that diagram, it would do the same thing as the symbols that they have originally started with, and then it's grown as we were talking earlier before the show, how Reiki and therapy has grown. It has grown outside of the box that was the Bible of the Orgone, Institute and everything that came about around it. And so different symbols, and then, of course, you would go different offshoots. And for me, just the idea of seeing that, it's like, oh, my gosh, you start it and you activate it in this flow and it starts to activate the energies, and it, as you said, it has its own intelligence. You know, you as the practitioner pull that energy in and start the movement of the energy that you do as a general, and then it starts to find the areas that it really needs to go to. And I was fascinated by it. So, you know, I followed it through and, you know, eventually got my master's. And, of course, that was funny because I was so excited about being a master. And basically the people looked at me and the trainers and the head trainer and goes, no, you start your master learning now. And I was so aware of that after that because it was like ego was where I was at to begin with and got more or less gently pushed into the reality of learning it. And, you know, they have principles, and the principles even change. I think I was looking at different things, and people have one set of way they, you know, just for today, I will let go of anger. Just for today, I will let go of worry. Today, I will count my many blessings. Today, I will do my work honestly. Today, I will be kind to every living creature. And then, you know, there's a more traditional one is trust. Just for today, do not worry. Just for today, do not anger. Earn your living honestly. Honor your parents, teachers, and elders. Show gratitude to every living thing. And those are two separate, you know, ways of doing Reiki that were put in the world. But, you know, principles are, they're there. And along with, you know, the fact that you learn what you can and can't do with it. And the fact that I basically looked up and found out, I didn't even know this, that they had done clinical trials in 2017 and 2018 to determine if Reiki, you know, was, you know, how it went, what it did, and, you know, hard to quantify, you know, and but they did find that in both of these there was enough evidence to show that it helped whatever was going on. It was helping clear. It was helping if they did it when, you know, you were doing before and after surgery, the healing process. Of course, it's not FDA approved because it basically doesn't have anything to do with drugs or medical, you know, devices or, you know, of any kind, surgery, you know, meaning you're not doing surgery. So you can't, it's, the FDA doesn't have anything to say about it. So we can't quantify it in the way, especially the United States likes to. So I guess I found that very enlightening because I've gone from the energetic level all the way down the line. And, you know, I kind of went, well, I can see where it can help in all these different other modalities if you use it as a companion without trying to, you know, say, this is the solution. Those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and that's those are very interesting thoughts, like just the whole practicality of it. I think that they should do more studies on it because it definitely makes a difference. I've witnessed that over and over again. And I know that there's been some studies, and I know that there has been some insurances that will cover it, but still is not as widely accepted as you would hope, you know, because it is such a wonderful thing that, you know, a practice that really does help to accelerate the healing process. And, yeah, so that's, are getting kind of close to break time, and
yes, we are.
So I'll just make one more comment before we end up bouncing over to our break.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just when you receive a Reiki session or a Reiki attunement, this is, you know, it just increases your life force to flow, and it helps to eliminate any kind of energetic blockages through your bodies. spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. And the whole thing about the increased energy, that universal life force, really nourishes your body in a way that you probably cannot even measure now. But it really does help to balance things out, and it's just one of my favorite things. But so we going to need to go to a break now, and we'll be back. Break us away, Nagashiva.
You're listening to The Witch, the Priestess, and the Cauldron, a radio podcast on the LMC Radio Network. Stay tuned, as more magic is coming your way right after these messages. LMC. You're listening to the LMC Radio Network, broadcasting out of Forestville, California, on the World Wide Web at LuckyMojo.com. The LMC Radio Network is a media alliance that brings you the best in hoodoo, conjure, witchcraft, rootwork, new thought, spiritualism, and pagan ways. Our shows include the Lucky Mojo Hoodoo Rootwork Hour, live on Sundays from 3 to 4:30 Pacific Time. The Crystal Silence League Hour, The Witch, the Priestess, and the Cauldron, Mystics, Mages, and Magical Places, and the Now You Know Show. All these shows are available as audio podcasts via the Lucky Mojo Forum at forum.luckymojo.com and at YouTube, where we make daily video uploads. Please like and subscribe at youtube.com/Lucky Mojo Curio Co. Sponsored by the Lucky Mojo Curio Company, makers of handcrafted spiritual supplies and offering the widest selection of magical herbs and roots, plus hundreds of free web pages filled with spellcasting tips and fortune-telling techniques. Our shop is located in Forestville, California, and we sell retail and wholesale online at luckymojo.com.
We are back.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, I know that you were going to start off with with some of your thoughts on some of the the healing aspects of this energy. Is it okay if I just want to mention like a couple of the different forms of energy healing that are around? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think the most basic one that is in the West here that everybody, that all of the other ones have probably branched off from is the Usui Ryoho Reiki. And so that was the Usui tradition of Hayashi and Takata. And then another one is the one that's practiced, the Usui tradition that's practiced in Japan. Another one is what they call the Usui Tibetan Reiki, and this is like the traditional Hayashi Takata form of Reiki, and they incorporate Tibetan symbols into the system. And so this was started by an American, his name was Arthur Robertson, and he was one of Takata's. And there's something called the radiance technique. And that is another offshoot that was created by Barbara Ray. And she was a Reiki master trained by Takata. And after Takata's passing, Ray claimed that Takata had given her all the attunements in a 6-level, some say 7-level system. So initially, I think it was called the real Reiki. But then later she renamed it the radiance technique. Then there's another form that's called Saichum, if I'm saying that correct. So there's another guy named Patrick Ziegler, founded that, and he kind of based it on, well, he spent some time in the Middle East around 1980, and he spent the night inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, where he received kind of like a spontaneous initiation, and he had also experienced like an unusual mystical connection to what he would later call the Saichum energy. And he came back to the States, received Reiki training, and then he kind of blended those two things together to create his own, which is the Sai Chi. Then there's Tara Mai. That's another offshoot, and he has different additional symbols, and he kind of more incorporates the energy into the 4 elemental rays of earth, water, air, and fire. And I could go on and on because there's Karuna, and I'm not going to go on about all of them because, I would take up the whole rest of the show. There's Karuna and Shambhala, shamanic, chaos Reiki, although that's not a specific tradition. It's practitioners combining the concepts of chaos magic and Reiki using their healing. And I think a lot of them try to use it more for change and healing of the larger transition society. And there's a number more that I'm not going to go on about, but it's very interesting that if you look at them, a lot of them are very interconnected because either somebody was a student of the other one and they went forward and kind of started, receiving insights or information or new symbols, and then they kind of evolved into their own system. And so there's a lot of different, very neat, very interesting systems of energy. But I think the most important thing about that is just regarding all of those systems is that the great thing about them is that they all work. They have different, elements incorporated into them, but they all work, and it just depends on which one you end up being more drawn to. So I just wanted to put that in there before we started getting further into just talking about, the physical and mundane aspects as well as more mystical and magical aspects. So with that, I'll just, I will shush up for a bit and let you talk, Elvira.
Oh, goody, I can talk now. Well, it's interesting because one of the things that, again, this is a energy form of flow into the body, and it basically, can work in such a way that it can be combined with various forms of meditation, yoga, other forms of exercise, even athletics, to help, bring result. Don't bring the results, but help bring results in achievement if you're looking for that. It can be used along with the massage techniques, Rolfing, chiropractic, psychological therapies, acupuncture, polarity, meridian techniques, non-touch as well as touch. And the interesting thing is that there are the idea that when you do these, of course, you've got benefits and, the fact that there are the things that we kind of touched on earlier, I did. But when you do the session, it's really important, and this is where I swear I use this for clients all the time about, other things, but it comes from intent to heal is what your focus is. The energy knows what to do. It comes with an intent to heal, and you just have to be the conduit for it and step aside and let, basically what they call the law of attraction, not necessarily Abraham Hicks, but sort of find what it needs to do. You are just the conduit, but then the energy goes to the areas. So when you're thinking of any of the modalities of physical healing that I suggested, if you realize that you choose to utilize the different symbols as a way to activate the energies and then become that along with what you are doing physically to that, individual, if that is your choice to be part of that, you're sending this energy and having it with its consciousness of where to go to the parts that need to happen. And it's fascinating because I was raised with a chiropractic family, a therapeutic family. I have utilized these techniques for my own health, and then I go off and follow this whole process, and I realize how synced using it in the mundane world with different healings that you would go through, whether it's a cold, a headache, insomnia, a bruised knee, you use that, and it works with whatever whatever gels you're using, whatever other things you're putting into your system or on your system, physical form, to allow that. But it also goes to the area that started the energy. So, it's a component, but then there is a mental emotional issue. And it goes to the root of the mental emotional issue is where the life force energy goes, because it goes to the root of the process as opposed to just topical. And I love how it is consistently talked about in all the different forms, whatever form you choose to follow. But that's really what it is. So a practical application in the mundane world is one thing, but it goes to deeper levels because of that intent to heal and go to the actual cause of it, not just what we think of as, oh, my head is hurting and, I've got a headache and I need to, get everything back in alignment. So that kind of area is what I see it as. What do you see the mundane healing aspects are for it?
Well, I think that when we channel Reiki or channel the universal energy, it naturally enters the other bodies, like the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies. And like when our flow of energy is disrupted or blocked, it begins to throw off all of the energy bodies. So, for example, like if you have a situation come up that is emotionally draining and you don't get to remedy your inner well-being, then an imbalance is, and if that imbalance isn't cleared or released, the continued stress of this imbalance will resonate down till it eventually reaches your physical body. So this can potentially weaken your immune system, and your physical body will be affected, ultimately with, disease or illness. And it can also start out in the opposite way, like with the physical body. So, for instance, if you break your arm, and especially if you don't get adequate physical treatment, your physical body becomes unbalanced, affecting your emotional and mental body. And you might become, short-tempered, or you might not be able to think clearly because of the physical pain. But yeah, it's interesting to note that often, like the last place an illness or disease manifests, a lot of times is in the physical body. And for this reason, that much of the time that the disturbance will start out in the mental or emotional body. So it's really, being in balance on all levels is really the staying healthy. And I think that Reiki is one of those modalities that addresses that in a very, basic way. So I think it's good to stress, though, that Reiki, it's not intended to be used instead of your basic medical treatment, but it's used to, energetically enhance any treatment that you are going through. And so there's a lot of different ways to use that. I think that this is where I'll mention the symbols. Each tradition has additional symbols, I would say, but the basic Hisui has 4 main symbols. So there's the power symbol, and that's used to concentrate more powerful flow of energy to whatever area you're sending it. And then there's the mental emotional symbol, and that's used for healing mental, emotional issues and addictions. And then there's the long distance symbol. Most traditions seem to give that one like at the second or two. So that one is used for sending healing remotely, and it's actually, the name of it is actually a Buddhist chant that's used to release karmic debt. But it's used for distance healing. It can be used for things like, well, this is getting more out of the physical, but past life retrieval. But it's also sending healing, physical healing to the past, which is kind of neat. And I'm on my teacher has a group of all the different healers that she's trained over the years. And so anytime somebody sends in a request, they'll have like many of the people in the group sending that healing energy. It's kind of neat because then you think about it. I mean, there's probably a couple hundred people in the group, so even if only a portion of them are sending healing energy, that's kind of a really nice have going on. I've put many people in that group. And then there's the 4th symbol is the Hisui master symbol, and that's usually I think most traditions give that when the person goes through their 3rd attunement and their training. But that one is used to intensify Reiki and to take it to a higher level or frequency. And it's believed that it gives you a stronger connection to the source. So it's supposed to bring like the highest level of effectiveness and also expand your awareness or expand your consciousness. So I love using symbols. Like I'll do things like place the symbols in water for I have a sick friend, giving them some water to drink that's been imbued with Reiki healing symbols. Or if somebody has a blockage, there's that whole removal of negative energy. That comes up a lot. Like with people, a lot of people carry stress in their neck and in their shoulders. And so in my Reiki sessions, it seems I end up taking out a lot of that, excess energy there. But then whenever you take out energy, you don't want to leave a void there. So then you're going to fill it back up with some good healing energy, and then I usually like to fill it in with one of the healings. So, there's a lot of, I know what I was going to mention, is that something that I think is a really neat thing for people that are just, especially just beginning energy healing or Reiki, is to go to a Reiki share, because those are I haven't done one of those for a while, but they're so neat because there you have a group of people who are usually, and they might be newer at their practice and they're wanting to get more experience, but there's usually a couple there that have a lot of experience, and it's kind of neat because then you're like, you might be laying on that massage table and you have like maybe 10 different people giving you Reiki at once, and it's that's actually a pretty neat feeling. Have you ever gone to a Reiki share?
No. unfortunately, where I was getting all of my training was, you know, the first level, I think, was it was actually in Santa Rosa where I was living. And then the second level and master, I kept going south. I was like San Leandro in that area for second, and then mastership, I went all the way to Southern California. So
and and sometimes it's hard to find a group that's close by to be able to something like that. And
you know, but it sounds really neat, and I think that's the same as a lot of how we do, you know, shifting gears, how we do, you know, even magical things is, you know, we get together. It's not a coven. It's not a class. We just start sharing things. And I really think that is that intermediary level that you go to from when you learn something to where you can practice it and get an idea. And then if you want to go farther, you can figure out which direction. And if you've got people of different levels that you're hanging with, so to speak, to do this, it gives you ideas. It gives you a direction.
Oh,
you might.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's Yeah, I know a lot of people, like you were talking about before, incorporate healing practices, energy healing or Reiki practices into their other practices, such as massage or reflexology, and that's a real treat. I had a student who went on to practice reflexology after that, and I went to him once, and it's like, oh my goodness, just, you know what, some people don't like having their feet touched, but he could touch my feet all he wanted. It was just like, yes.
Yeah,
and
it can be, and it, you know, it really does, you know, have a lot of ways to incorporate into other healing modalities, not just, you know, doing it in, like, before you go to surgery and after, or different ways of doing it in that way within the medical paradigm, but it also is these other modalities that people, you know, they're not going to necessarily tell you, they may, but I think that's really cool. How would you go about doing this in the magical realm?
That is a great question. I was just thinking we should looking at, you know, things with the magical realm, and there are so many wonderful ones. I'll tell you, one of my favorite things is for using Reiki for enhancing intuition and psychic development. One of the things I like about being a Reiki practitioner is I've done psychic attunements on myself and also on my students, because I would psychic development courses and mediumship classes and stuff like that. And not always, but sometimes if we were able to, if the conditions were right, if it was a small class and stuff like that, I would do, like a psychic attunement on my students to enhance their clairs, the clairvoyance, clairaudience, sentience. And I'm going to say clairknowing because I can't remember what the right term for that is. But
okay.
I really like that. And I think, what I usually do is end up placing the power symbol and the master symbol into the corresponding chakra area. And the results can vary from very subtle to dramatic. I like to receive a psychic like every couple of years just to provide balance and kind of give me an extra boost of energy flowing there. I know the results can vary from increased player experiences to, I know some people have told me that they've had an increase in, dreams, dreaming true, prophetic dreams, to clear remote viewing, and also, just to generally enhance like intuitive abilities.
Right.
And you can also channel Reiki into like your psychic tools, like tarot cards, pendulums, crystal balls, and I think it works particularly well on crystal balls. Yeah. How about you?
Well, the idea of when you do magical workings, I know that sometimes we can, write out the actual symbol or have it and utilize it as do the candle that we're doing. We can, charge it before we start working it or whatever we're doing to do that. Or as we're burning the candle or as we're doing the work with stones or herbs or we're putting, pouches together, we can hold and channel that energy into the items that we're doing it as much as you would with a prayer or, more sigil-based points of reference in terms of that. And so I've used that at all different levels. And even when I go ahead and I'm going to give a gift that I, want to someone, I make sure that I hold it and I, the highest vibration that I can put into there for, that, not just the prayer of love, but, those things is to charge it with, this kind of energy that brings that to the person.
What a
that
lovely
is,
way.
getting
Yeah. Wow, that is really lovely. I mean, what a neat idea. I do that. Well, like you were saying before the show, we were talking, and you were saying, like just about that you use it so much sometimes that it's almost like second nature. Just imbuing your candles or your crystals or herbs. One thing I like to do with crystals is like with tarot cards, I usually have like one energy boosting crystal and one energy clearing crystal stored with each of my decks and my pendulums and stuff like that. So then I'll routinely like kind of hold the crystals and channel energy into them just to kind of keep them working strong.
It becomes second nature. I mean, I guess I have a massage table. When I had an office, I had it in there. I did, energy work was how I put it out there, and that's when you, especially with the concept of legalities, is that you can put your hands on the person, but you can't move your hands on the body. You have to pick them up and put them down again. And then you'll notice when they talk about where to place your hands on Reiki, they're very specific about making sure you pick them up, put them down. You don't move them because that's considered massage. And so that takes a licensure. And I was trained when we started learning this that you have to pick your hands up and do it, or I would do it, by putting my hands not on the person but just above it. And actually that, to me, was like the most powerful because the person felt the energy coming out of my hands into them, and it went into them. They were conscious of it, but then, of course, eventually a lot of us will kind of fly into that other zone where, we kind of relax so nicely. But it was that kind of, process rather than constantly putting my hands on them, even though that was a great thing, and I love doing it as I change different ways. And the same thing is true about, putting the symbols in the pictorial form on the other side of the table, meaning underneath in the corners, and setting it up like you would a altar.
Yes.
So,
yes, you can, for creating sacred space. You might want to, do that by putting the symbols into the four walls, and then central symbol to run through the room for setting up wards. Feel like you need some extra protection, and you want to only let through, like, you're doing like a spirit circle, just benevolent spirits. That that's a great way to work with Reiki and other energy traditions, especially like incorporating the symbols. And, having that energy flow through the symbols to create a sacred space or a protected space. Also a very, very wonderful way.
Yes. I think, though, we need to look at our time. We're getting overly excited. Yes. I think we've got closure time now.
Okay. We are, you're so right about that. Okay, so we are getting ready to end here, and I just, I guess we don't have any final comments because we're just about done. But I think there was a lot of good things said. Learning any of these energy traditions can definitely help to heal your body, mind, and spirit, yourself and others, and it's also an excellent to combine with magical and spiritual practices. And so we are going to say farewell, and before we go, though, I'll say that next week, Thursday, February 20th, I believe, we are going to be continuing the theme of 22nd, thank you, for inner transformation and talking about ways of developing psychic and intuitive ability. So I'm excited about that one. And with that, we will say farewell.
Take care. Bye-bye.
And witch on, witch well, and witch wisely, everybody. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to The Witch, the Priestess, and the Cauldron, a radio podcast on the LMC Radio Network. Our podcast airs on Thursdays and is available for download. Plus, we're uploading them weekly as YouTube videos. Questions or comments on this show or ideas for upcoming shows can be sent to our website at witchpriestessandcauldron.com. That's witchpriestessandcauldron.com. Until next time, merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. Blessed be.